one line at a time, but in between each line, each set of lines, we'll all sing together, all at the same time, everyone together. Gauranga Karuna Koro Amidina Hina Jani Mosamo Prakita Prabhu Nahiti Bhuvan. Okay? But I'll sing a couple little things before too. Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta. Everyone all together, bolo. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivesesha Shunyavadi Paschachari Sutarine Vanchakalpatarubhischa Kripasindhu Yevacha Tanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnaveyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Gauranga Karuna Koro Ami Dinahina Jane 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 Mosamo Pautita Prabhu Nahi Tribhuvane 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 Jante Trina Dori Gora Taki He Tomara Jante Trina Dori Gora Taki He Tomara Jante Trina Dori Gora Taki He Tomara Taki He Tomara Chaitanya Prabhu Dasirani Dasa Chaitanya Prabhu Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dasirani Dasa Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Prabhuji, could you do me a favor and close the door? The mosquitoes are going to start coming soon. Do devotees need water? Anything? Pani? Pani Dorkar? And maybe, Prabhuji, just up above you, there's a switch on the very left. That left switch. That one. And there's another switch, 2 switches over to the right. 2 to the right. Try that one. Yeah, that's okay. Actually, turn that one off. It's okay. That's better. All right. So we should talk about something? Read something? What would you like? What would they like?
No more about Jagannath pastimes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri.
Okay. So, is anybody here not born in Orissa? Where are you born, Prabhuji?
Bihar.
Bihar. Acha. Oriya Buji? Tiki. Probably more than I know. And somebody else? You? And who else? Or someone else? Just one. Okay. So you have to forgive us. So you all grown up with so much Jagannath culture. And we've written many things about Jagannath. I'm not sure where we should start with all that. Have you heard this story that our Guru Maharaj tells about 3 logs of wood? About the origin of Jagannath? No? Guru Maharaj told us a number of times. In the West, the first time he told us was in New York City in 1994. And the second time was in Los Angeles a week or so later. The third time was in Bhubaneswar a week or 2 after that. And the fourth time was a month or so later in England, in London. And I happened to be present all 4 times. First time Guru Maharaj was speaking, I was traveling a little with Guru Maharaj as a servant. So many people have so many different ideas about Jagannath. Once there was some big Pandal program in Orissa, and the governor of Orissa was invited to do some Pandal program. And they invited different sadhus. And they asked the ISKCON temple if they would send some Bideshi. So that's my job. I'm an official Bideshi, see? I have the skin. So they sent me, and the people sent a car for us. And when I got in the car, there was one Pandit, one professor. He was a Sanskrit professor, PhD. And my God, he knew more shlokas than all IYF India put together. I mean, really, he was amazing. He'd memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita as a young boy. And then later, from talking to him, I can't say, I was only with him for half an hour or so in the car, but he was quoting just verse after verse from Bhagavatam, and from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and from Lita Madhav, Vidagdha Madhav, and Ujjwal Nilamani, and many different Goswami books. He was very, very learned. And I was impressed. until he started speaking about Jagannath. He told me, actually, I'll tell you a secret. Jagannath is actually Buddha. I said, oh, okay. And then as we were speaking a little more, I was saying, how do you learn so many verses? He said, there's a secret. You eat fish. Very, very good for the brain. Eat fish. So I was a little disappointed. Although he knew more shlokas than all of India IYF put together. Still, what is the value? Even some new bhakti, even some person, I can go to the village, I can meet some rickshawala here in Puri, a very poor man. He has several children, he's making 100 rupees a day or something, little money. But he knows more about Jagannath than that big, big pundit. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a verse, Aham vedmi shuka vedi vyasa vedi na vedi bhakti bhagavatam grayam na buddhya chatikaya. It's spoken by Mahadev Shivji. He says, Aham vedmi, I understand Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasa vedi na vedi va. Whether Vyasadeva understands or not, I can't say. I'm not sure. Aham vedmi shuka vedi. Shukadeva Goswami says, Vyasa vedi na vedi va. Bhaktya Bhagavatam grayam na buddhya na chatikaya. To understand Srimad Bhagavatam, to understand Jagannath, Krishna says, Bhaktyaham abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvata. To understand me, you have to have bhakti. I can go to school, and I can try to get it. What's your name, Prabhuji?
Satyam.
Satyam. I can get a PhD in Satyam Tattva. And I can have a huge book of photographs of Satyam. And I've done years of research and interviewing him so many different ways. But if I've never met him, and I just know something about his grades, and how he likes to dress so nicely, and how he dyes his hair from blonde to black, and things like that, if I only know those things about him, then I haven't really understood Satyam. Even in the material world, if you want to understand someone, the only way to understand them is through bhakti. Devotion, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It's not just some information. Am I going to understand somebody? And what to speak? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Shiva, he says, I understand Bhagavatam because Bhubaneswar is known as a Kamrakanan. Right? You know this story? My Guru Maharaj used to tell this story also. It's a Kamrakanan because it's a place of one mango tree. Or sometimes they say one forest of mango trees. I don't know. But previously, in Dwapara Yuga, it's a long story, but Lord Shiva, he was defeated by Krishna, and Krishna destroyed Kashi. And Mahadev Shivji had no place to go then. He couldn't rent a flat in Krishna Towers or something across the street from the temple, so he had no place. So he came to Krishna, and he asked for a place to stay. And Krishna said, what to speak of, any place, I'll give you my place. Bhubaneswar, Ekamrakana. And so Mahadev went there. But now Mahadev Shivji, he's Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. He's a great Vaishnava. He likes Krishna so much. So he's always speaking and hearing Bhagavatam. And Gauri, Parvati Devi, she's listening to him. And once they're sitting in Ekamrakanan, and Parvati is sitting under a tree, and Lord Shiva, under a mango tree, and Lord Shiva speaking Bhagavatam. And Parvati, because she went to the university and she studied active listening. Right? When you have active listening, you say, You look at the speaker, you shake your head. Shake your head. Yes. That's good. Then they know you're not sleeping in class. So she was saying, like this. But after some time, Lord Shiva noticed that Parvati was asleep. You know, I do puja for Giriraj. And we have mantras to put Giriraj to sleep. Agachashayana stanam swapayasa Girirajo. We have mantras for putting him to rest. We have mantras to wake him up. Utisa tisa Girirajo, Tyaja nidram kripa maya. So I found, we did some scientific experiment, social experiment some years ago. We found there's also mantras to put devotees to sleep and to wake them up. Did you know that? They did an experiment in ISKCON temples, really. Right? If you want to put all the devotees to sleep, there's a mantra. You chant, Om Namo Bhagavate. I went, and then everybody just goes to sleep. Right? That's a mantra to put. And there's a mantra also to wake everyone up, you know. Oh! Am I wrong? It's true. Once Prabhupada was in Detroit, Washington. Did you ever wonder, when you listen to the recordings, why Prabhupada would give class for 15 minutes, sometimes half an hour? It was a long class, it was half an hour, 30 minutes. 15 minutes. Once in Detroit, this is a true story, I heard this from Bhaddi Narayan Maharaj, who was present there. Prabhupada was giving class, every single devotee in the temple room fell asleep, except for Prabhupada's servant. And then Prabhupada turned to his servant and said, actually, this Bhagavatam class is for advanced devotees. And it's a fact. Huh? And I think perhaps as devotees have become more mature, in those days too, my God, devotees were sleeping for 3 or 4 hours a night. They were going out all day doing Harinam. I spoke to many older devotees. Sometimes they would offer their dandavats in front of the deities for darshanartik, and they wouldn't get up. They just they just fall asleep. They were so tired. Because Prabhupada was working them so hard. They couldn't understand so much philosophy in those days. But now it's a little different. And we have a lot more Harikatha, and we want to hear Harikatha. Prabhuji, you go on my desk. On this side, there's a black Bhagavad Gita, a small Bhagavad Gita about that big. You can bring it to me, please? Prabhupada speaks about this point in Bhagavad Gita also in the 10th chapter, in the last paragraph of his purport to the first verse, if he finds the book. We'll see. That's it. Dhanyavad. So this 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking about his opulence, his different qualities, and how to understand him. In the first verse, he says, Bhuya eva mahabaho sriname parama vachaha yatteham pariyamanaya vakshami hitakamyaya. He said, listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna, because you're my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I've already explained. And Prabhupada wrote in the last paragraph, when I read this, I thought, oh, this is why Prabhupada only spoke for 15 minutes or half an hour at that time. Prabhupada said, the more one hears about the Supreme God, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. One should always hear about the Lord in the association of devotees. That will enhance one's devotional service. Discourses in the society of devotees can take place only among those who are really anxious to be in Krishna consciousness. Right? Discourses, even amongst the devotees, in the society of devotees, can take place only among those who are really anxious to be in Krishna consciousness. I see a lot of devotees, they like Kirtan Mela. But Krishna Katha, not so many. But Kirtan Mela, that's lots of fun. And there's some pretty girls, right? That's why he goes. And nice prasadam afterwards and things. So Prabhupada goes on. He says, others cannot take part in such discussions. The Lord clearly tells Arjuna that because Arjuna is very dear to him. For his benefit, such discourses are taking place. So anyway, back to our story. Parvati fell asleep. And Lord Shiva noticed she's sitting there sleeping while he's speaking. But the sound, was still coming. And Lord Shiva didn't even notice for some time he was speaking and she was sleeping. And then, where's the sound coming from? He looked up in the mango tree. And there was a parrot, a shuk. And the parrot had a big smile on its face. And the parrot was making that sound, like this. You see, that parrot was Sri Shuk. What does Sri Shuk mean? Sri Shuk means the parrot of Srimati Radharani. Sri means Sarva Angsini Radhika. Guru Maharaj speaks about that in Embankment of Separation in chapter 7. There's a very nice chapter called Sri Ketra Dham. He says, Jagannath Puri Dham is known as Sri Ketra. Sri Devi is a Swarup Shakti, Krishna's internal potency. Therefore, that Dham, which is glorified by the presence of the Sri Shakti, is known as Sri Kshetra. Sri means Sarva, Lakshmi Moyi, Amsini Radhika. Shrimati Radhika, who's the source of all Shaktis. So Sri Shuk. Shuk means parrot. That parrot was a parrot of Radha, and he used to sit on Radharani's hand, and Radharani would say, Bolo Krishna, Krishna Bolo, Bolo Bolo. And that parrot would say, Krishna, Krishna. And then Radharani would feed him pomegranate seeds. Life's pretty good if you're a parrot getting pomegranate seeds from the lotus hand of Radharani. It's pretty good. And that parrot was so attached to Radha and Krishna. After Radha and Krishna left this world, they manifested their manifest pastimes disappeared. They told that parrot, you stay behind, and you'll speak Krishna Katha. So the qualification of someone who speaks Krishna Katha, they should like to hear Krishna Katha. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta once said that about Srila Prabhupada. He said, I've marked him. He likes to hear. During the Brajmandal Parikrama one year when Srila Prabhupada was there in Braj. And so many devotees, they were out on Parikrama, and then the Harikatha would come later in the day from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and many devotees didn't come. They were too tired. They had too much prasadam. They walked too much that day. But Srila Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, was coming every day. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that, I marked him. He likes to hear. So the qualification of someone who can speak is they like to hear. So that parrot was there in the tree, smiling very big. Now Lord Shiva, he's Asutosh. Right? He's very easily pleased. He's also known as Rudra. He has a bad temper. And you don't want to make him angry. He's more angry than Tukaram Prabhu when he gets angry. So Lord Shiva, he's thinking that this Bhagavatam, this is Paramahamsa Samhita. This is for the liberated souls. What is this, parrot listening? This is not good. So he picked up his Trishula. And he was going to roast a parrot. And the parrot went flying away. Not because he's afraid. In the Bhagavatam, it says Shoka Moha Bhayapaha. Those are 3 symptoms, external symptoms of hearing Bhagavatam. You just hear Bhagavatam. And Shoka, Moha, Bhaya, Apaha. Those 3 things, your Shoka, your Moha, your Bhaya, they go away. There's no fear, lamentation, illusion. But the parrot had a different problem. There's no more Krishna Katha. He wanted to hear Krishna Katha, so he went to Badrak Ashram, where Vyasadeva was speaking Bhagavatam to his wife. And his wife was very astonished. Wow, this Bhagavatam is amazing. She's listening like this, just with the mouth open. And that parrot was flying, and the parrot flew inside of her mouth and entered into her womb. And he became known as Sri Shuk, or Shukadeva Goswami. So therefore, Lord Shiva, he says, Aham Vedmi. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, Aham Vedmi, I understand Bhagavatam. Shuka Vedi, Shukadeva Goswami understands Bhagavatam. Vyasa Vedi na Vediva, whether Vyasa understands or not, I don't know. He didn't hear from me. Right? Bhaktya Bhagavatam Grayam na Buddhaya na Chatikaya. The only way to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, the only way to understand Jagannath is by bhakti. Na Buddhaya, not by your intelligence. That professor who knew so many shlokas, he had such a high IQ, but he's a murk. Doesn't understand anything. Boka. And he knows so many shlokas, but he can't understand Jagannath. He's also very fond of smoking beedis too. Same cigarettes anyway. Bhakti Bhagavatam, na buddhya, na chatikaya. Not just by reading the commentaries. You can go to school, you learn so many things in school, you get some information. But you still need some experience. And even if you have a very good grades in school, people don't care. They want to see what experience do you have, what nature do you have. Na buddhya na chatikaya. So not just by reading books. I can read books, I read a book. Does anybody here have a headache? You have a headache maybe? He has a headache. Okay. So I read a book once about brain surgery. You have a headache. I have a knife in the kitchen. We can do brain surgery. I read a book. I read it twice. Will you let me do brain surgery? No. What if I can quote the book? Still you won't want to let me do it. So what to speak of bhakti? It's just common sense, isn't it? So much of Krishna consciousness actually is common sense. The people become so stupid by just going around looking at the phone all day long. I saw a cartoon the other day. It was a man who was shining his light on the wall, and the cat was staring at the light. And the man was laughing. Just see the cat, he's like that. And then the man's, he's staring at his phone all day. So are we really so much better than the cat? We make fun of the cat's staring at the light, but I'm staring at the phone. What's the big difference? So Krishna consciousness, so much of it, it's just common sense. But we've lost our common sense, and we become like hog, dogs, camels, and asses, Prabhupada would say. So many people have so many ideas about Jagannath. But what is the conception of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What is the conception of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas? How did they see Jagannath? In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur says, Je Rupa Chinche Sehi Rupa Hoy. Je Rupa Chinche. According to your chinta that you're meditating on, Je Rupa, that form that you like to see, Se Rupa Hoy, the Lord manifests a corresponding form because they're attached. That when Tulsidas came to Jagannath Puri, and he came before Jagannath, he said, oh, I thought this was Bhagavan. Not. And he wouldn't take Mahaprasad. And he left. And Lakshmi Devi became very disturbed. What is this? Your devotee's coming, he's not taking Mahaprasad. Lord Jagannath said, don't worry. I understand him. And he came in the form of a Brahmin and told him, you should come back. You should have some Mahaprasad. When he came back the second time, then Jagannath appeared before him as Ramachandra. And Balaram appeared as Lakshman. And Subhadra appeared as Sita Devi. And then he thought, oh, this is very good. Je Rupa Chinche Dasi Se Rupa Hoy. And we know the story also of that Ganapatni Bhakta from South India in Hativesh. At the end of Snan Purnima, Snan Yatra, Lord Jagannath wears that Hativesh. Because that devotee, he thought if he's Bhagavan, then he's going to appear as Ganesh. And so the Lord appeared like that. So many different people have so many different ideas. You can't say they're wrong. I'm very fascinated. I'm Mubideshi. I'm very fascinated by Jagannath culture because Jagannath culture, I've never seen any other religion in the world where so many people worship this form of the Lord. You got Ganapatnis, you've got Ram Bhaktas who worship him, you got Sri Vaishnavas, you got Madhva Vaishnavas, you've got Shaivites who worship him, you got Shaktas who worship him, you got movie stars who worship him. You've got politicians who say he's a great cultural symbol. I've even marked here in Orissa, some Christians, they also worship Jagannath, and they consider him to be Yahweh or whatever, and even some Muslims. I saw in the newspaper, some villages in Orissa, they have Rath Yatra, and the Muslim community pays for the Rath Yatra cart to be built. And they're Orissa Muslims. Odia Muslims. They're a little different, huh? They're not doing jihad. They also appreciate Jagannath. So many people appreciate him. But it's something like you or I. We all have so many different names. You respect Tukaram Prabhu, you say Prabhu, this and that, because he's a very important person. But his mother used to call him Boo-Boo. Right? So, and his teacher used to call him Badmash, right? And his Guru Maharaj has another nickname for him. So many devotees call him so many different names. But he's still one person. You can't say that his mother's wrong, but you can't address him as Boo-Boo. But it's not that his mother's wrong. She has a different conception, right? So then, what is the best conception? Right? We say Vishnu Sahasranam. Krishna and Lord has so many names, thousands of names. But what is the best conception? The best conception, Bhakti Mama Bhajanati Yavanyas Chasmi Tatvata. When someone has pure bhakti. So who has the best bhakti? It's the Brij Basis. It's Srimati Radharani. So I'd like to tell you the story that my Guru Maharaj told in America that I heard the first 4 times. He said that when Krishna left Vrindavan, he went to Mathura, and then he went to Dwarka. And that's called Sudura Prabhas. There's 4 types of Vipralamba, 4 types of Sambhog, It's a technical thing. So, Vipralamba, you understand? Means separation. And the most intense is called Sudura Prabhas. Prabhas is of two types. There's Dura Prabhas and Sudura Prabhas. Dura Prabhas is when Krishna goes to Kamyavan for 4 or 5 hours. But he's going to come back. But Sudura Prabhas is when Krishna goes to Mathura or Dwarka and they don't know is he going to come back or not. When Gurudev goes to Mayapur, he goes to America, that's a long ways away. But we know we'll see him again. But when Gurudev leaves this world, then we don't know. Am I ever going to see him again or not? That's Sudura Prabhas. And that kind of separation is actually a kind of union also. The word viraha, it means Vishesha Rup, Rahasya Milan. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains. Viraha, viraha, viraha. That V means Vishesh Rup. And Raha means Rahasya Milan. It means a very confidential kind of meeting. And this is Jagannath. Jagannath is that deity. He's a deity of separation. In Jagannath Puri is Vipralamba Ketra, in the language of my Guru Maharaj, or the place, the embankment of separation. So, when Krishna left Mathura and went to Dwarka, the gopis didn't know if they would ever see him again, and they were crying and crying in separation. But do you think that it's just one-sided? The gopis are feeling separation while Krishna's having a party in Dwarka. Nah, no more girls. Now I'll be a brahmachari. No. It's not like that. Krishna says in Gita, Yaya tam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyam. However someone approaches me, I reciprocate accordingly. So when the gopis at Vrindavan were crying, Krishna was crying for them. But the gopis had an advantage over Krishna. Because you see, the gopis had so many friends who could understand their feelings. But Krishna was all alone in Dwarka. No one could understand his feelings. Even Balaram, who was there, Balaram was not with Krishna when Krishna was with the gopis. The gopis become very shy. Here in Orissa too. The wife shouldn't be alone with the older brother. It's not appropriate. The gopis have become very shy around Balaram. Balaram doesn't know about those things. So Krishna can't even speak to Balaram about that. But as the gopis at Vrindavan were crying for him, Krishna was crying for the gopis. And so much so that sometimes at night, he would just cry and cry, and his pillow would become soaking wet with tears. And one day, some of the queens of Dwarka, they were speaking together. And what's happening? My husband, in the middle of the night, he starts calling out the name of some other woman. Radhe, Radhe, Lalita, Vishaka, Gopi, Gopi. And he starts crying. What is this? He's my husband. And he's crying like this. So finally, one day, things became so intense for Krishna that Krishna finally fainted unconscious. This is a very amazing thing. I had the good fortune somehow in this movement to travel all over the world and give classes. And I've met people. We have friends who are Muslims. We visited Jerusalem some years back, and we have some friends who are Jewish. We have Christian friends in America, nice persons. And they also appreciate Krishna consciousness to some extent or another. We were going to Uzbekistan in Kazakhstan for some time giving classes. There was one lady coming in a burqa to class every day. I said, my God, I've never had any ladies come to class with a burqa. And they said, well, she's doing namaz 4 times a day, 5 times, whatever they do. You know? And she's also chanting 16 rounds. I said, why is she wearing a burqa? Because if she stops wearing the burqa, they'll kill her. Well, that's a good reason. Whether she keeps wearing the burqa. So many different persons are there. And they're appreciating Krishna consciousness in different ways. I lost my train of thought when I was speaking all that. Anyway, so Krishna, one day in Dwarka, he fainted unconscious. And at that time, some of the devotees, the intimate devotees, they came. There was Narad Muni, there was Balaram, there was Subhadra, Uddhava was there. And they all came around Krishna, and they were very disturbed because, as mentioning, so many different religions all over the world, and they appreciate Krishna consciousness, but they can't really understand. You can't tell them the story. I remember the very first time I saw Prabhupada's books, it was like 1971 or 1972. I was a little boy, 11 or 12 years old. I was going in an old abandoned house. I like to play in old houses. Boys like to do that. Some hippies had been staying in there, and they put pictures of the Krishna book all over the walls. And I like to read. At that time, I was reading about Greek mythology and Roman mythology. I'd read about the Bible. I was reading the Quran. I'd read the Egyptian Book of the Dead and many different books. For a young boy, I was very well read because I was trying to understand what is the truth. And I saw those pictures, and I could immediately understand this is something spiritual. But I couldn't figure it out. Who is this blue boy? And who are all the girls? And what are all these cows? And what is this? I couldn't understand. So people can't understand. When we say that Krishna has fallen unconscious, who can understand that? And so at that time, they began a discussion. What shall we do? How can we bring Krishna back to external consciousness? At that time, Narad Muni, he has a veena. Narada Muni, Vijay Veena. That Veena was given to him by Krishna personally. And Narada Muni said, I know the medicine to bring Krishna back to external consciousness. I'll play some Braj Leela Kahani. I'll sing some song about Braj Leela, and Krishna will regain external consciousness. He said, very good, you do it. Narada Muni said, you don't understand. If I do that, then Krishna is immediately going to want to return to Vrindavan. And I said, so what's the problem? He can go back to Vrindavan. Narada Muni said, no, you don't understand. If Krishna returns to Vrindavan right now, and he sees the Brijbasis in their ecstasy of separation from Krishna, who knows what's going to happen to Krishna? So first we have to send some message to Vrindavan. To tell the Brijbasis, tell the Brijbasis Krishna's coming. So they all did. This is very good. So they said, Uddhava, you should go. Uddhava is Krishna's messenger. Previously from Mathura, Krishna sent Uddhava, and we read about that in the 46th chapter of the 10th canto. And in the 47th chapter, the Brahma Gita, the Krishna's message that Uddhava spoke. Uddhava, you should go. Uddhava hung his head down. He said, I can't go. Previously, Krishna sent me with a message, and I went there. I'm a Brihaspati Sishya. I know Siddhanta. And I went and I tried to preach to Mother Yashoda and the Nanda Maharaj and the gopis. And I told them, don't cry. Krishna's God. He's everywhere. And they told me, you're a boka. What kind of nonsense is this? Huh? And I saw my philosophy didn't help. So then I told them the only thing that I could say, Krishna's coming soon. And by my telling that Krishna was coming soon, they managed to stay alive. But if I go back there now and I say that Krishna's coming, they're going to say, Uddhava, you're a liar. We remember when you came here last. You told us that last time. Go away. You're just a liar. They won't listen to me. So Uddhava said, I'm sorry, I can't go. It's a problem. Then they said, Balaram, you should go. Balaram's Dauji, the big brother. Krishna previously sent Balaram from Dwarka with a message of love to the gopis. So he said, Balaram, you should go. And Balaram, when he heard that, he shook his head. He said, I also can't go. Previously, Krishna also sent me, and I went there, and I tried to console Nanda Baba and Mother Yashoda and the gopis. And I also saw, like Uddhava, that they're going to die in separation. So I told them, don't worry. When I return to Dwarka, I'm going to tell Krishna, you have to return. And Krishna listens to me because I'm Dauji, I'm the elder brother. It's an important position, right? Every elder brother thinks like I have two younger brothers, so I think like that. Elder brother is very important. So I went to Dwarka, and I told Krishna, Krishna, you have to return. They're going to die in separation from you. And Krishna always listens to me because I'm Dauji. But for some reason, this time he didn't listen. So if I go back now, they're also going to say that I'm a liar. And they won't listen to me either. At that time, Subhadra stepped forward. She said, I'll go. She said, everyone knows that men are very crooked, but women are very simple. They'll listen to me. They'll believe me. I'll go. I'll sit on the lap of Mother Yashoda and I'll wipe away her tears and I'll tell her, Ma, you're Gopal, you're Kanu. He's coming. And just on the way, some kings have stopped him worshiping him, but he's coming. He's coming soon. I'll tell them. I said, very good idea. So they called for Subhadra's chariot driver. Who's her Subhadra's chariot driver? Do you know? Arjuna. And her chariot is called Padmadvaj, right? And when Balaram saw what was going on, he said, hey, I also want to go. I want to go to Vrindavan also. So they called for his chariot. What is his chariot? Taladvaj. And so then Balaram was going first, and Subhadra, this is like Rath Yatra and Jagannath Puri. First is not Jagannath, right? Kaliya, Jagannath, Chakadola comes last. First is Balaram, then Subhadra, and then Jagannath. So Balaram, they went, and Subhadra, and they went very, very fast to Vrindavan. And when they arrived in Vrindavan, they're so excited, we're going to get to see the Brij Basis after so long. They jumped down from the chariot. And then they saw the condition of the residents of Vrindavan, who, I'm sorry, it was like this mundane movie, was it Night of the Living Dead? It's like the zombie movie or something. Sorry, mundane example. But Vrindavan was like that. Everyone was like dead persons, just barely moving. Some people say that Mother Yashoda was still standing in the road and just staring in the direction where Krishna had gone to Mathura and waiting for her boy to return. And that her stove was now covered with cobwebs because there's no point in cooking. And that the grass of Vrindavan was dying. The Jamuna had shrunken. Govardhan Hill was shrinking very fast. And all the Brij Basis had stopped eating, stopped taking baths. And the gopis were so skinny that the kankara, I say the bracelets on their wrists, had become rings on their little fingers. Excuse me, other way around. The rings on the little fingers had become bracelets. And they become so thin. Our Gurmahs tell us like that. So when Balaram and Subhadra saw that, they became so deeply moved in their hearts. And Balaram's different than us. There's the Deha and the Dehi, a little philosophy. There's the body and the owner of the body, right? But when Balaram and Subhadra, there's no difference between the Deha and the Dehi. It's the same. They're spiritual. So when they felt some intense emotions in their heart, seeing the love of the Brij Basis and separation from Krishna, what was inside their heart manifested on the outside, and they became stunned in ecstasy, and suddenly their arms and legs shrunk inside of their body, and a big smile came on their face. And their eyes became very big. And they became Balaram and Subhadra. And it's like we see Jagannath over here in the picture. Such big eyes are here. Chakadola Jagannath. And that form is known as Mahabhav Prakash. So meanwhile, back in Dwarka, they told Narad Muni that now you should play some Braj Leela on your veena, because now we have to wake up Krishna. Began to sing. Jai Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Hari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Hari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivara. Jaya Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tidavarachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jamuna Tidavarachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Narad Muni sung like that. And suddenly Krishna's eyes opened. And he jumped up, and immediately his hand went to his waist. And he looked a little confused, and he was feeling around. And Krishna said, "Where's my vangsi? Where's my flute?" Those gopis, they must have stolen it again. And then Krishna looked around, and he said, "Uddhava, what are you doing in Vrindavan? And Narad Muni, you're here also." And they had to tell him, "Krishna, you're not in Vrindavan. You left Vrindavan. Now you're in Dwarka." And at that time, Krishna began to cry. He said, "I must return. I must return. I must." Yes, yes. We have your chariot driver. Who's this chariot driver? Daruka. And what is this chariot? Nandi Ghosh. Your chariot is just outside. And so then Krishna came out. And our Guru Maharaj described this, that when Krishna came out, he was intoxicated. This may sound a little controversial for all of you, I don't know, because we're not supposed to take intoxicants, but Krishna was intoxicated. He'd been drinking alcohol. Now, you're not supposed to do that. Don't do that, okay? He'd been drinking alcohol, but not like what he likes to drink, Hare Krishna. He'd been drinking this Radha Madhuri, this intoxicant of Radha, meditating on Srimati Radharani. And the symptom was so bad, his drunken condition, he couldn't walk straight. And he's coming out, and he's swaying back and forth. Have you seen like that?
Yes,
What do they call it here in Jagannath Puri?
Dolajatra.
We call it Pahandi.
Pahandi.
And Dolayatra also. Dola means the sway. But we call that Pahandi. Jagannath's coming out. He's in an intoxicated condition, swaying back and forth. And they put him on the chariot. And the chariot's going very, very quick. And so then Krishna arrives in Vrindavan, but there'd been no message given, because Balaram and Subhadra were just standing there completely intoxicated. And Krishna, at that time, he arrived in Nidhivan. But before he arrived there in Nidhivan, a very terrible thing had happened. Srimati Radharani was feeling such intense viraha tapa, this fire of separation from Krishna, that she was in a dying condition. And she was laying with her head on the lap of her pranasaki, Lalita. And Vishaka was fanning her. And from all over Braj, people had heard the news that Radharani is dying. And so one by one, so many people were coming there, and they were crying and begging Radharani, "Please don't go, please don't go." Chandravali came there. Chandravali, according to Rupa Goswami and Lalita Madhav, is actually Radharani's cousin sister. Did you know that? And it seems like there's some competition. You may have heard, I don't know, if you read those kind of books. You should read Bhagavad Gita. But anyway, there seems like there's some competition between them. And sometimes Krishna goes to Chandravali's kunj. So Chandravali came there and she started crying. She said, "Hey, Radhe, don't go. Don't leave us." Some people say that I'm your competition, but it's not true. The only reason why Krishna comes to my kunj sometimes is because he wants to see your loving sulkiness, your loving ecstasy called man. He wants to see your loving anger. And that's the only reason. Sometimes Saibhya and Bhadra, they come and they tell Krishna about Chandravali. And Chandravali sounds like Radharani. Chandravali looks something like Radharani. And just when he remembers Radharani, Krishna becomes completely confused. Sometimes he embraces a tree if it's a golden color. He sees a champak tree, with a champa tree, we say in Odia, those yellow-colored flowers, swarna-colored. And Krishna becomes ecstatic, in ecstasy. So what to speak when he sees Radharani? But just seeing Chandravali reminds him of that. So Chandravali, she said, I'm not a competition to you, Radha. I've never been a competition to you. Please don't go. And at that time then, Kutila came there. Kutila is the daughter of Jatila. I don't know if you've read those books. Okay, you should watch him. Kutila came there. Kutila is a crooked person. And Kutila was crying also. And she said, hey, Radhe, please don't go. Please don't go. I used to criticize you. I sometimes said that you're asati, that you're not chaste. And I very proudly proclaim that I'm the most chaste person. And there's a nice story, Bhakti Charamaj tells sometimes, that once Krishna manifests some Jwara Leela, some sickness. And the doctor said there's only one cure for this sickness. If a perfectly chaste lady brings a pot from the Jamuna of water that has 1,000 holes in it, that water will heal Krishna's sickness. And we'll know if she's perfectly chaste because not one drop will come out of the pot. There wasn't a big queue of ladies standing in line waiting to do that. But when they heard the news, Jatila and Kutila became very proud. I can do that. Everybody knows how chaste we are. And Kutila said, Ma, I'll do it. I'll show everyone I'm the most chaste lady in Braj. And so she went to the Jamuna River, she filled up the pot of water, and she put it on her head. And all the water came out. And she had a bath. She was soaking wet and standing, and everybody started laughing at her like anything. So who could do that? Finally, Shrimati Radharani, she stepped forward, she said, I'll try. Kutila was telling the story before Radharani. And Kutila said, Radhe, you took that pot, you went to the Jamuna, you filled it up with water, and you said one word, Govinda. And you put the pot on your head, and not one drop came out. And you showed in this way that you are the most chaste lady. So Kutila was crying, please don't go, don't go. And then Ayan Ghosh came there. Ayan Ghosh is the so-called husband, also known as Abhimanyu, the so-called husband of Radharani. And he was also crying, hey Radhe, don't go, don't go. Some people say that I'm your husband, but I never touched you. According to the Brahma Purana, Ayan Ghosh, or Abhimanyu, is actually a shadow of Krishna. He's a partial manifestation of Krishna, but he never ever gets to touch Radharani. He said, you belong to Krishna only. So everyone was crying and begging like that. And then suddenly they could hear the sound of a chariot coming. And Nandi Ghosh arrived there with Krishna on the chariot. And when Krishna saw Radharani, he jumped off the chariot. He went running to Radharani. But when Krishna saw the ecstatic situation of Radha in separation, lying there, unconscious, Krishna became stunned in ecstasy. And something happened to him. His arms and legs shrunk into his body. His eyes got very big, and a big smile came on his face. And he manifested that Mahabhav Prakash form. And where's the message? Where's the union? So Radha and Krishna are together, but Radharani's lying in an unconscious condition. And Krishna, he's manifested this Mahabhav Prakash form. You okay, Krishna Kun? You need to come around?
I'm not sure how
I think you could do that. They can make way for you. Don't worry. Do you want to grab the big screen? Anyway. So at that time, Brinda Devi, she knew the medicine for Radharani. And Brinda Devi, she orchestrated a breeze, some wind, that would carry the fragrance of Krishna's body to the nose of Radharani. And when Radharani smelled Krishna's body, then, she opened her eyes. And at that time, Lalita whispered in Radharani's ear, Krishna's returned. Krishna's returned. And then Radharani came back to external consciousness. But there's still a problem. Krishna's standing there in this Mahabhav Prakash form. And at that time they sent Vishaka. And Vishaka, she knew the medicine for Krishna. She went in Krishna and she whispered in Krishna's ear, Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And then Krishna, he came back to external consciousness. And at that time, Krishna told Srimati Radharani to commemorate this pastime. Myself and Balaram and Subhadra, how we're like 3 logs of wood floating on the ocean of Radha Bhav. We'll manifest this form eternally. This form of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra in Jagannath Puri, this Mahabhav Prakash form. And this form of Jagannath, this is known as Radha Viraha Vidura Rup. If separation from Radharani can manifest a form, the absolute topmost level of separation can manifest a form, that form is Jagannath. And he's told Radharani that here in Jagannath Puri, this Vipralamba Ketu, the place of separation, will have a strange meeting, a strange union. And you'll also come in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's Krishna Viraha Vidura Rup. If separation from Krishna can manifest a form, that form is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If the last limit of separation can manifest a form. So he said there'll be this strange meeting between the two of us in this Vipralamba Ketu Jagannath Puri, which is a place where so many people have so many different conceptions about Jagannath. And the Sri Vaishnavas are worshipping him. And some say he's Vishnu, and some say that he's actually Shiva, the Shaivites say, and the Shaktas worship him, and the Gadapatnis worship him. And even the Christians and Muslims and the politicians and the movie stars worship him. And you can't say that they're wrong, but they all have a partial conception. But we want to understand, what is the conception of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What is the conception of Srimati Radharani? And that's why this place is known as Sri Kshetra. It's the place of Srimati Radharani. It has a mood of Srimati Radharani. But Lord Jagannath, he's Aishvarya Madhurya Yugala Milan, Sri Jagannath. He's a combined form of both Aishvarya and Madhurya. He's Madhurya Rasa Ganaiti Sri Murti. He's a condensed form of conjugal mellow. That's Lord Jagannath. But in this place, there's great opulence. But that opulence hides the sweetness. That sweetness is there. There's a combination of both things. You have Smarta Vichar here in Jagannath Puri. And many people, when they come to Puri, they shave their heads. Sometimes even the ladies do. They shave their head and they go to take bath in Panchatirtha in 5 different tanks. And then they go to have darshan of Lord Jagannath and they fast and they chant certain mantras and they get the pandits to chant certain prayers and things like that. That's Smarta Vichar. But we read in the Beda Kirtan Pastimes chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I think is Madhya Lila chapter 11 or maybe 12, that when Maharaj Prataparudra was on the roof of his palace by Grand Road, and he was looking down and he saw the Kirtan party of the associates of Mahaprabhu. He asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he said, what is this? He said, I've seen Kirtan many times. Because here in Orissa is a place of Kirtan. Every village, they're chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you know. But Maharaj Prataparudra said, I've not seen a Kirtan like this before. He'd seen Smarta Vichar, but what he hadn't seen was Goswami Vichar. And that's our understanding of the devotees. We respect the Smarta Vichar, that Smarta Vichar is actually important. It increases the tension that the gopis have. Rath Yatra here, once I was invited when we visited one country in Europe to give a lecture about Rath Yatra to a group of outside people. And honestly, it was the first time I'd given a lecture to non-devotees in like 10 years or something, long time. And I looked out in the audience and I saw, oh, this is difficult because there weren't any devotees. And these were not like people from Orissa. These are people in Europe. There's a casino right next to the Rathayatra cart, and people coming out of the casino, and they had hamburgers and chicken and things in their hands. They were drinking alcohol. Some of them had their arms around a girl. I don't think it was their wife, Hare Krishna. And they're smoking and drinking. And I had to tell them about Jagannath. I thought, what can I say? So I thought, I'll tell them the truth. I said, this festival is all about rescuing God from mechanical, organized religion and bringing him to the village of our hearts. And so that's what it is, right? And when I told them that, they, oh, and they liked that so much. I was watching before they had so many dramas and music and things on the stage, the devotees, and the people were staying for an average of 5 minutes. When they had some pretty girls doing Odissi dance, they stayed for 10 minutes. That was the longest. And they gave me 35 minutes to speak. I thought, oh my God. But I spoke for 35 minutes and nobody left. We spoke to them like this. We told them that this festival is all about rescuing God from mechanical organized religion and bringing him to the village of our hearts. So that's Jagannath Puri. It's a place where God has become kidnapped. And he's not living in Vrindavan. He's not even living in the Jagannath Mandir. He's living in the Sri Mandir. Right? It's Lakshmi Devi's place. And Lakshmi Devi's in charge of things. But once a year we want to bring him to Sundarachala. From Nilachala to Sundarachala. We want to bring him to the Gundicha temple where he first manifested before Maharaj Indradyumna. And therefore that place is like Vrindavan. That's our conception as devotees. But there's other conceptions. You can't tell Tukaram Prabhu's mother that you can't call him Boo-Boo. He's Boo-Boo for her, maybe not Boo-Boo, whatever it is. But she has a name for you, I'm sure. Every mother has a name for the little boy, right? You can't tell her she can't say that, but that's not the name that we call him. That's not the name for other people. We want to know what is a conception of Jagannath that Radharani has, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has. That's our line. So is that okay? Prabhuji told me we should tell you some story. I don't know very much, I just tell stories sometimes. And we're very happy all of you came today. Does anybody have any reflection, something that you liked from the story? So that's always our system. We don't always take questions. But I like to hear reflection. Someone say, this was very good. I like this story. I like this particular point. It reminded me of something else. That reflection helps us to keep whatever valuable thing we found in the talk. And that's paraspara. Parasparana katanam pavanam bhagavadya samhita ratimitastuscha nivita mitatmana. 11th canto of the Bhagavatam says that our katha is not like a lecture in the university. We have to sit and listen to some professor, we say in America, a pompous ass, somebody who's standing up there like a big donkey making a big noise, something, and thinking he's such a big important person, and you're, oh my God, when is class over? I want to go. Right? We don't want to give class. We don't want to have a commercial on television. We don't want to have a sermon in the church. But we want to have this paraspara, some back and forth. That's Krishna Katha. So does anybody have a reflection? Then I know not everybody was asleep. Anything? Prabhuji?
Actually, when you said the right perception of seeing Lord Jagannath, so that story we don't know, exactly we don't know. We hear some different story about Rath Yatra, but the way you speak the story, it's like, I like it very much. Very good story actually. Like in Birava, Mata Subhadra, Baladev came, then after that Jagannath came, and how they become very much ecstasy, and the separation from Radharani, this was very heart-touching.
See, you guys are all students, right? Going to school, different colleges, university. So your purpose, basically, if you don't mind me saying, is to get some information, to memorize certain things. There's 6 of these, 10 of these. There's periodic tables if you're studying, physics or whatever it is that you're studying. But Krishna consciousness is not like that. We hear from Gurudev not with the idea that I want to collect some information, but we want to hear it because we want to collect the mood that he has in his heart. And we do that by rendering service to Gurudev. Therefore, so that's very, very important. We should submit ourselves to the speaker. Pariprashna, we should ask questions. Sometimes in school, maybe you don't want to ask a question because you're afraid you're going to look stupid in front of the girls. Maybe you bring a mango or something, I don't know. You bring some fruit or something to the teacher. That's our custom also in America, at least when I was a boy. Now they just bring guns to school. It's another thing. But we used to bring apples to school. You have to serve the message and the teacher both. And then you have Shravanadikar. Anybody else have something? You have something? What do you think, Prabhuji? It's okay?
The thing that the conception between the Radha and what is the form of the Jagannath was too good. Because I don't know properly of what is the form of the Jagannath. It means Jagannath was Krishna was so excited to see the Radharani under the thinking of Radharani. So that was I was so confused. And today I was thinking about.
In the Jagannath Ashtakam, there's a verse. Param Brahma Pida Kuvalaya Dolot Fula Neyano Nibashi Niladra Nehita Chadano Nanta Shirasi Rasanandi Radha Sadasavapara Lingana Sukho Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatume Param Brahma Pida Kuvalaya Dolot Fula Neyano. What does that mean, that he's Param Brahma Pida? He's the last limit of Brahman. It means that form of his, it's Mahabhav Prakash. And what does it mean? Rasanandi Radha Sadasa Vapur Alingana Sukha. That Alingana Sukha, he's embracing Radharani with great... I don't see Radharani with Jagannath. Radharani's stuck on the outside of Jagannath or something. No. But... just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya, is a combined form of both Radha and Krishna, but Krishna's on the inside and Radha's on the outside. Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Surupam. So similarly, Jagannath is also the combined form of Radha and Krishna, but Rasanandi Radha Sadasa Vapura Lingana Sukha. Radharani is on the inside, and on the outside is Krishna, Jagannath. So he's that form of Mahabhav Prakash who's thinking of Radha. That's so very important. I mean, in school, if you want to go to, what is it, IIT here in India? That's very difficult. How many people apply to go to IIT? It must be, I don't know, tens of thousands or something, and maybe a few hundred people are actually admitted in. You had to be the most qualified person. But Krishna consciousness is not like that. If we say that only the most qualified persons can come to Krishna, can practice bhakti, then I'll have to raise my hand and say, I'm sorry, but I thought you people had God, but you don't. Because if you really have God, if you really have something spiritual, then it should be open for everyone. Even someone who's a murk, even someone who's dumb, who can't read or can't hear, they can also develop spiritual life. Gorkishodas Babaji, he could read. He was reading, his favorite book was Prem Bhakti Chandrika. He said you should read Prem Bhakti Chandrika every day. But he couldn't read Sanskrit. He wasn't reading the Bhagavatam or anything. And he was considered in that cultural sense to be illiterate. But he knew so much. So it's not that we have to be able to read to get perfection. If someone is born blind and they can't read, they can still get prem bhakti by chanting the holy names. Even if someone can't chant, they don't have a tongue, they can still chant in their mind and their heart, and they can still get perfection because it's something spiritual. That's a very, very important thing for us to understand. Otherwise, we become some kind of elite thing, like the smartest. Many times, I'm a Puri Panda, so you should give me some bakshish. You'll be very good for you. You get some ashirvad. And we don't want to become like that in this kind. I'm a senior devotee. So you should give me something. Right? Anybody else have anything you'd like to share? Tukaram Prabhu, do you want to add anything? Correct anything?
No. 2 points I like the most important one was card for showing rescuing God from organized mechanical can put this slogan like.
You know what I find? Have you been overseas? No? People are different in the West. Because especially the religion things there, if you read in newspapers, there's been so many scandals and so many priests and people doing bad things to little boys and little girls, and people really don't like organized religion, for the most part, in the West. Here in Orissa, people are pretty simple. And they just, someone tells me you should wear a mask, you should not go out because of COVID, they just do it. In America, they pick up guns. They fight about it. They have a big problem with it. But they're simple. And I found that in the West, people really, really don't like organized religion. And so you speak like this to them. They appreciate that very much because intuitively everybody also is looking for something in their heart and they're not satisfied. Even practically, I've seen some big, in the universities in America, I've seen some big atheists. And I'll tell you frankly, their atheism is a kind of religion. It's a kind of religion. What does religion mean? Well, religion means to link with God. With their linking with their conception of God, what does that mean? Their conception that that's something absolute. And you may say religion is a leap of faith. So also is atheism. How do you know there is no God? Well, I believe it. You haven't, if you've died and come back, then you can say perhaps, but you don't know. And in any case, what is an atheist? In linguistically speaking, a theist is a person who believes in God. Atheist is someone who doesn't believe in God. So an atheist is dependent on a theist. If there's no theist, you can't have an atheist. He's just a guy who's really angry about everything, that's all. And it's a kind of religion that they have also. And they're also based on faith. We don't want to be based on faith. The Smarta Vichara is based on faith. But Krishna in the Gita says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitramida Mutam. And this Raja Vidya, this topmost knowledge, is Pratyak Savagamam Dharmyam. It's Pratyak, it's meant to be practically realized. And that's what Krishna consciousness is really all about. And that's why, even if you can't read, you can still experience Krishna consciousness. Even if you can't understand the philosophy, if someone just chants the holy name with great sincerity, they can realize Krishna, they can get Krishna prema. It's an important thing. I'm sorry, did I cut you off? I think I did. I cut you off, I think, maybe. No? Okay, you had something else maybe, too?
And the very first, like you started with the point quoted from Bhagavad Gita Gurpad, that discourses in society of devotees can take place only among those who are really anxious to be. How important it is. Hearing so important that if you really want to be in Krishna consciousness, this is the only thing.
My Guru Maharaj, Tukaram Prabhu, I see him speak, he spoke this 3 logs of wood story once. I spoke this at that Rath Yatra story I'm telling you. I spoke this same story I just told now. I told it there, in the public, in front of the people drinking the beer and the girlfriends and the smokes and things like that. And nobody left. And the reason I did that is because my Guru Maharaj in 1995, when he went to the same Rath Yatra in the same place, he spoke that story, and everybody was very, very charmed. And afterwards, the organizer for the program came to me, and she was just astonished. She said, "Oh my God, we can't get them to stay for more than 5 or 10 minutes. But for 35 minutes, nobody left. How did you do that?" It was and I realized something then, that Krishna Katha is such a very nice thing. We have to word it in a certain way. And I was telling them that same Supreme God who creates the universe and destroys everything, now he's crying for his devotee. And I told them the meaning of this festival also is that when the devotee cries for God, God cries for his devotee. Oh, that's really far out. They like that something, and they listen. And of course they couldn't really understand so much. But they got some benefit from that, just by hearing that. And that's what we want to do. We want to give some pure Krishna Katha to people. Sometimes we have to tell some stories. Sometimes I'm telling a lot of jokes. Because they're young, I way after devotees, and come on, you got to But if I'm speaking to a group of scholars, then I might speak in another way. Or if I'm speaking to a group of 5-year-old kids, then I'll say, boo, boo. Right. According to who we're speaking to, we'll speak in a certain way. Do you have any more, Vikram? Did you have a phone in there? No, that's just a case. Yeah. Wow, he has a phone that's invisible.
I want to ask one thing, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Like, what does it actually mean when we say that our goal is to attain Krishna Prema or to experience Krishna Prema? And we are listening to these pastimes on one side, and then what exactly our goal is. And as a sadhaka, means our goal is like we hear more that we should hear for our purification. So what is its purification part, and what exactly Krishna Prema is? What exactly we need to achieve? So because the goal is not very clear, so we are not very enthusiastic to achieve it.
So first of all, someone may say that, look, I know one verse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to Benares, he said, my Gurudev told me I'm a fool. I only know one verse. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalo nasteva 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 gatiranyata. Right? So why are we having Bhagavatam class? Right? Let's just chant Hare Krishna. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva. It doesn't say Shastra Swadhyaya, Shastra Swadhyaya, Shastra Swadhyaya eva kevalam. Right? We just chant Hare Krishna. What is the necessity of that? There's a kind of a connection between Krishna Katha and Krishna Nam. The two go together. Just as Srimati Radharani and Krishna come together, so also Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that Krishna is not different from his name, and Radharani is like Krishna Katha. And it's required that we hear something. But we have that philosophy, we have that gyan, that information. Jiva Goswami in his commentary in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 111, where it says that Jnana karmadi anavritam, Jnana karma anavritam, that bhakti shouldn't be covered, anavritam, it should be uncovered from Jnana or from karma, and that Jiva Goswami says there's 3 types of Jnana: Tat Padartha Jnana, Tvam Padartha Jnana, and Jiva Brahma Aikya Jnana. Knowledge of myself as a spirit soul, knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and knowledge of the oneness of Brahman and the Jiva soul. He says that Jiva Brahma Aikya Gyan, that's really not beneficial for bhakti. And actually, bhakti is not dependent on Gyan. And he says we may think that bhakti is dependent in 2 ways on Gyan. In first ways, you may think that Gyan is the goal. To collect all this information, to get a perfect grade record, and that I'm going to approach IYF in the same way. I'm going to try to memorize everything and be there perfectly for everything, and that's the perfection, because to get that information, that's the goal of IYF, or that's the goal of bhakti. But then you're putting jnana over bhakti, and that's covering it. But it should be anavritam, not covered. Second way it may cover is that you may think that I can't get bhakti unless I have this jnana. The bhakti is not possible unless I have that gyan. But in this room, how many of us are really gyanis? Does anybody here know Sanskrit nicely? How many of you? Anybody? Not even one person. It's a shame. We should have some Sanskrit scholars. To really know the Bhagavatam, you should know Sanskrit. You should know Sanskrit grammar. You should know literature. You should know different commentaries and things. But we don't have that qualification, but still you can get bhakti even without that. Yeah? And if we think that bhakti is dependent on that, then it means that bhakti is dependent on that gyan. What we want is our realization. We want to understand what is our swarup. Because we all have so many different identities. And right now, previously you identified as yourself as a little boy. And little boy, what do? When you have an identity, then you have an action that goes along with it. As a little boy, your action is you like to play. And then you became a student. And as a student, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to collect information and run after girls, right? That's what most people say anyway. That's what students are supposed to do. Then when you get out of school, then what do? You're supposed to, now I'm a family man, you get married, your parents will be very upset if you don't. You get married, and you have a house, and you have children, and you work a job. And that's what you do. And you have this identity that I am a family man, and therefore you act in a certain way based on that identity. But then what if your wife and children die? Then you have a new identity. Or you have an identity that you're an Oriya person. But then what if you move to America? You go to America, then it becomes a little complicated. I have some Oriya friends in New Jersey and some places in America. And their identity is a little different than yours. I'm a professional in America, but I'm also from like an Indian background. Krishna Kon? Could you please take this call from Prashanta? I'm just going to pass the phone over here. Hare Krishna, Prashanta. I'm going to pass my phone to Krishna because I'm giving a class right now. So, according to the identity you have, you're going to behave in a certain way. And sometimes some of you may become atheists, or you may go to America and decide to become a Christian, or so many different things. We have so many different upadhis, designations that we have. But we want to understand who I am. That's the beginning question. Aham Brahmasmi, that I'm not this body. I'm a spirit soul, but just to understand I'm Brahman, that's also not enough. We should understand our Swarup. But then what do I do when I understand that Swarup? That Swarup in Sanskrit, in Rasa Vichar, we call that Sthayi Bhav. We have a fixed relationship with Krishna. Either in Shanta Ras, in Dasya Ras, in Sakya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, or Madhurja Ras. You may love God in an impersonal kind of way. You may love Him as a servant. You may love Him as a friend. You may love Him as a parent. You may love Him as a beloved. Those are different relationships that we have. And when we realize our Swarup, who we really are, only then can we really be satisfied. Nothing else is really going to satisfy us. Prabhupada used to give the example of a fish. You can take a fish out of the water and you say, look, I'm really sorry, you're probably having a really bad day. I know you want to be in the water, but don't worry, it's okay. I'm going to give you a pair of really expensive Ray-Ban sunglasses to the fish. But the fish is not impressed. They say, don't worry, it's like, I'm going to give you a brand new Walkman or whatever. I'm going to give you a brand new computer. I'm going to give you a brand new cell phone. But the fish doesn't care about those things. Those things don't satisfy us. What will satisfy us? Nothing is going to satisfy us until we understand what is my Swarup. What is my identity as a spirit soul? And then comes, what am I going to do? What is my connection with the Lord? And that connection, we call that Krishna Prem. But we have love for the Lord, to put it in a very simplistic way. You know these things very well too. Is that okay? In a very simplistic way. Okay? Should we stop there? All right. Well, you guys are going back by bus, or how are you moving? Came by car. One car? Two cars. Okay. Oh my God. You made him ride on the top or something?
No, he drove the car.
So I'm really glad all of you guys came very much. We have this ashram here. We're trying to do something called GORA, the Gaudiya Odia Research Association. Gora also means Gauranga Mahaprabhu. It's the name Gora. It means that person is Govinda Radha. It's Gora. And we want to do some research association. We translate and collect old rare books. We have a big library downstairs. I can show you. We have a lot of very old rare books in Odia and in Bengali. And our desire is to try to collect those books and preserve them, scan them, translate them, reprint some of them. Ultimately, we'd like to reprint in Odia language. Encourage people to understand what your Odia literature is. In West Bengal, I can tell you, I know there's always some competition between the Bengalis and the Odiyas. I know that. I've been here so many years. But I can tell you in one sense, please forgive me, but the Bengalis have you defeated in one sense. They're very proud of their literature. Do all of you, anybody here not know how to read Odia? Raise your hand. Well, he doesn't know. He, of course, he's from Bihar. I remember giving a talk to the IYF before in Bhubaneswar, and there's a number of the students that couldn't read Odia. They could speak, but they couldn't read. And I found a lot of Odia students today, they know how to speak Odia, but they haven't read. Have you read Bhakta Kavi Gopal Krishna? I don't think so. He's one of the most famous Odia Vaishnavas in the line of Shyamananda Prabhu. And there's so many wonderful, amazing literatures. And we should know these things. And so we'd like to, that as part of our project here, we'd like to try to promote that. And we also take devotees on Prikrama, and we do our research for our printed magazines and things. And we like very much when devotees come and give us your association. And I think we have some prasadam also. Some rasgullas or something. I don't know what Krishna Kun got, but she offered something to Giriyash. But she's on the phone right now. I'm giving a lecture tomorrow, giving 2 lectures tomorrow, but one for the Govardhan retreat. So it's a part of things there. Anybody else have any other questions or comments or anything? See, also, a lot of these, this is an original painting, that's an original painting, there's a few original paintings in the next room. We're also trying to encourage devotee art, thoughtful art, different ways. This painting up here was done by one Russian Mataji, and this Jagannath face down here was done by an American man. And this painting over here, this is Tota Gopinath, this is a painting, it's not a photograph. That was done by a Polish Mataji named Anuradha Dasi.